Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Welcome, Julia.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here today. We have Julia Riew. She and Brad Riew are the authors of The Last Tiger, a young adult fantasy. Is it historical or contemporary?
Historical.
Historical, okay. And I looked at a brief synopsis, and you were inspired by your grandparents' lives?
Yeah, exactly. It's I would say a loose adaptation inspired by our grandparents' forbidden romance and their fight for freedom during colonial Korea.
Wow. How did you decide to write the book?
So we actually started writing this book on Mother's Day of 2021. Let's see, I think this was pandemic time. So my brother and I were both home. And I had recently read a couple different novels that really inspired me, including Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi and The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And when I looked at the inspiration for those books, they were both based on either real family events or real historical events or real things that were happening in the current world. And that really inspired me. So I went over to my brother and I said, hey, for fun, do you want to write a fantasy novel inspired by our grandparents' love story? Because our grandparents have this amazing, crazy cinematic romance that we always wanted to do something with. We never knew quite what it was. And like after reading those books, I was like, I think this is what it is. So we literally started on that day, and by the evening, I think we had like the entire magic system and like a lot of the structure of the book plotted out. Although it did end up changing a lot from there.
Interesting. Wow. It's amazing that, were you both writers at that time? Did you already like writing?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I always considered Brad to be like the real writer, although I definitely was a big writer in when I was younger. I was working mostly as a composer. I was still in college at the time when we started the project, but I had written a lot of prose and a lot of like fan fiction when I was in my teens. But that's mostly when I started writing musical theater, and that was really my sort of main gig for the last couple of years. Brad was doing his MFA at in fiction at the NYU MFA. He was doing the NYU fiction writing program. And so but the two of us have like, we've always collaborated since we were tiny children. Like our idea of playing was telling stories and jumping around and acting them out. And we wrote a musical together when I was in high school. And so it's by no means the first project that we did together.
Okay, so it probably felt pretty natural and like an extension of what you'd done before.
Exactly, exactly.
That's amazing. I think I would have killed my sister if I had to write with her.
It's funny. A lot of people, we get that a lot of people saying either like, "Oh, I would love to write something with my sibling," or like, "Oh, we would kill each other."
Yeah, it's either love or hate, right?
Totally, totally.
That's a lot of fun. So tell us a little bit about the book, about the characters, and what we are going to find inside.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the book, I actually have it right here.
The
Is this
cover is,
video or is this audio only?
it's video, definitely. The
Okay,
cover is
awesome.
amazing.
So I have the book right here. It's got these beautiful sprayed edges. It also, I think it's called like a metallic cover. It's got that shininess. So the character, it's a dual POV. We've got our two protagonists are Eunji and Sung, and Eunji and Sung are inspired by Brad and my grandparents. And so Eunji is our grandmother. Sung is not, I guess Gunji would be a stand-in for our grandmother. Sung is inspired by our grandfather. And then there are also a lot of characters in there that are inspired by real people from our grandparents' lives. That being said, there's also a lot of characters that are just completely fictional. The book is divided into three parts, and this is what's really fun for me is that so the inside cover is framed with this gold foiling. And these are the names of the three parts of the book. And the three parts are they're Chung, Nunchi, and Han. And those three words are concepts that are uniquely Korean, or that are unique to the Korean language, and that have no direct translation in English. And the reason for that is that this book really is, in so many ways, a celebration of the resilience of Korean people and Korean culture. And that coupled with the power of love, which is our grandparents' forbidden romance story. Um, just really, I don't know if we want more than that because I can talk about it forever, or we can get more into it with more specific questions.
No, please keep going.
Yeah, well, so in terms of the actual story, it's inspired by these real life events, which are that our grandparents met during the time of Japanese occupation when they were teenagers. They fell in love instantly. And my grandmother came from a really wealthy family. My grandfather came from a really poor family. And because of that, her parents basically told her that love doesn't put food on the table. He's not good enough for you. And they had actually arranged for her to, she was supposed to be arranged to marry this other boy who was a character in the novel who was very, very, very briefly mentioned by my grandma in like a one sentence somewhere in this large piece of writing that she did over the pandemic, but who we fleshed out into an entire character. But basically, the story of The Last Tiger is about it's set in the tiger colonies, which is currently colonized by the Dragon Empire. They are ruled by Dragon Ki, which is the magic of the Dragon Empire, which enables dragon people to have the power of super strength, essentially, and which made the tiger colonies quite vulnerable to attack. And Eunji comes from a Yangban family, which means that she is essentially a noblewoman in society. And Sung comes from a very poor family. And these two people meet by almost a mistake and begrudgingly must become accomplices in order to keep secrets that they are each holding, to keep each other's secrets in almost like a mutual blackmail situation. Um, and so Eunji starts helping Sung study for the exam, which is something that can actually help him elevate his status and potentially change his life, enable him to gain the magic of the empire. Something that Eunji has been trained to study since she was a young kid. And but like my grandparents, who ended up, once their forbidden romance was found out, they ended up actually being separated for a long time, and by circumstances of war and family and location and class and all these things, Sung and Eunji go through a similar journey where they are separated and then ultimately find each other again through this crazy journey of hunting for the last tiger, which is a magical spirit, and also in our story, kind of the personification of Korean culture in the book. So that's kind of the short TLDR summary of the story.
That sounds so fun. So is the last tiger a physical tiger or is it a spirit?
Yeah. Well, so in the actual Korean history, during this period of Japanese occupation, Japan actually was hunting down the tigers in Korea, and tigers are the national animal of Korea. And so this for Japan was really a symbol of Korean culture, and they were this them trying to eradicate Korean culture. And so in our book, it serves the same purpose, but the tigers in our version of the story are also these magical spirits that have special powers that can also bestow special powers upon specific people, just like the dragons can, and just like some other animal spirits in this world that we've built. And so they are hunting down it. They are searching for the actual last tiger. The really sad thing is that in real life, the tigers in Korea are extinct now because they were eradicated. But maybe our story has a different ending.
Well, I hope so. I love happily ever afters. And do you switch from chapter to chapter from the points of view? And are they first person points of view?
Exactly. So it's first person POV, starts with Sung, then goes to Eunji, and then it's back and forth for the rest of the
Okay.
story.
Neat. Those stories are so fun because you can
Mhm.
get really up close with each of the characters and
Totally.
what they're going through and their trials and tribulations, I guess we could say.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I personally love first person, especially dual POV first person, especially when it's fantasy romance. I just love like there's nothing like a first person book. Maybe a video game where you can really get inside the head of a character, but in a video game, you're completing objectives, you're coming up with your own narrative, whereas in a book, like nothing else can you ever step inside someone else's head and go on a journey. And in the case of a dual POV, you can step inside two people's heads who might have opinions of each other that are different from what their opinions are inside their heads. And that for me is just so fun.
Yeah. That's my first go-to usually when I'm either reading or writing is that first person POV. And
Totally.
it's interesting how those can, I don't know how much other work you've done, but to do something else when you have a preference for one thing is really hard for me. So,
Totally. No, absolutely. I mean, I kind of had that experience with this book because I'm a musical theater composer, and a writer and a playwright. And so having to go through the experience of starting in a medium that is so collaborative where a different person does every single job. Like a different person is the costume design, a different person is the casting, a different person is the set design, to being an author where you are actually all of those jobs, was definitely a really fun experience. But I was like, wow, I can't believe authors just truly write everything.
yeah, I took a screenwriting class this year and it was amazing to me how different that, like I was trying to transform one of my books into just a screen an action feature, but yeah, and so I saw how movies can turn out so different from the books they're written in, and I
Yeah.
can imagine going the other way. Like you have to fill it with so many more layers than, like you said, you did all the jobs.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think ultimately they're just such different mediums, even though they are both storytelling and they have a lot in common. With a play or with a musical, often you're writing that musical and play so that it can be interpreted many ways again and again. And often some of the fun experience for me of like writing musicals is that I can picture these characters looking like many, many different things, and I can picture these lines being interpreted in many different ways. And that's the joy of it. Whereas in a book, it's kind of like you get to set the whole tone. So both are really enjoyable. It's just very, very different.
Fun. How long did it take you to write the book?
So we started, as I said, in May 2021. And then I think I want to say we really grinded on it for like 6 months. And then after that, I went back to college. And so we had sort of disjointed periods where we would like write a lot and then take long breaks. We got our book deal in December 2023. So and then, of course, we continue to do rewrites after that, and it's coming out in July of this year, which is 2025. So, the total, you could say 4 years, although it's a bit on and off.
Right. Well, that is actually a pretty fast timeline for authors I talk to because
Mm,
most of the time I feel like, somebody wrote this book and then for 3 years they were looking for their agent and, and their publisher. And so that's very exciting that this story is coming to life.
absolutely. Yeah, no, we're just super excited because it honestly started off as something that was a hobby. It was kind of like a for fun, another Brad and I doing another little fun pandemic project, and then now it's really happening.
So what are some other themes that you hope that people get from this book?
I think the primary theme of the story really is the ability and the power of love to bring love and empathy to bring us through difficult and dark times. Specifically, Korean history, Korean like recent Korean history is full of a lot of strife and a lot of war, a lot of a lot of pain in everyone in even just our family history. There's a lot of pain. But there's so much love there. And when you find love and you find purpose and you find dignity, that's when you find the strength to carry through these difficult times. And I think one thing Brad and I've talked a lot about is we feel like today, as always, I mean, throughout all of history, it's it's difficult. Young people really face a lot of hardship and a lot of confusion and a lot of fear about the future. And these are things that our characters are dealing with. And we look back at our ancestors, we look back at our grandparents, and we said, well, they were not only able to survive, they were able to overcome, they were able to prevail and fall in love and have an amazing love story and create their own family and be proud of their identity that was trying to be literally wiped out of existence. And if our grandparents and our ancestors were able to make it through those really difficult times, our hope is that our readers today can say, maybe we can as well.
Right. They can see the hope and the inspiration, and I guess the idea that no, all is not lost, perhaps.
Exactly, exactly. So that's really kind of the main theme of the book. But beyond that, I mean, we also, we wanted it to be fun. We wanted it to have that cinematic drama feeling that our grandparents' love story has. So, we took certain elements of their love story and we dramatized it. We made that, as I said, we made that arranged marriage guy into this like bad boy princeling of the empire. We have like certain elements of like the secrecy between Sung and Eunji, and the journey that they go on is this big grand epic journey and full of banter and high stakes and chase scenes and quiet little romantic scenes or combinations of those things. So yeah, we're hoping that it can really include a lot of the elements of the books that we really loved reading growing up.
What was your thought process in the choice to make this fantastical or a fantasy book?
For me, I think that fantasy, there's a lot of elements of it, but I've always been really, really drawn to fantasy as a medium because for several reasons. I think number one, fantasy, I think is such a good metaphor for reality. Sometimes there are I think like in the broadness and specificity of fantasy, we are able to take certain concepts like, as I mentioned, Korean nunchi, and we are able to turn that into magic. So like nunchi in Korean is essentially there's no direct translation, but people consider it to be like emotional intelligence and the ability to feel other people's feelings and know what to say to make people feel things, or just ability to read the room. And that's such a core Korean concept that for me and for Brad, it's like what fun to then be able to magicalize that and turn that into a real like active thing that is moving the story forward in this whimsical, fantastical world. So there's the whimsy of it. There's the ability to extract metaphors and turn them into magic, which I think is just really fun and a great way to kind of look at something from a new lens without it just being straight up the history. And then the third component of it is really for me, I think, as a Korean American, um, Brad and I are Korean Americans, which means that we are not quite Korean, and we are also not quite fully American American. And what is fun about creating new worlds is that you can set the cultural tone, which means that it doesn't have to be historical Korea. And it doesn't have to be these characters in our book, they should feel almost Korean American. They should feel like the identity, the cultural identity that Brad and I hold. And outside of fantasy, there is no historical space for Korean Americans because you go back a couple hundred years, there was no such thing as Korean Americans. Um, and so it's a really fun way to be able to step into a new world where we can wholeheartedly embrace our identities and also at the same time unpack these modern day concepts and these historical concepts and also tell a family story and make it fun and magical.
Well, it seems like you have achieved that goal, and hopefully everyone will love your story, The Last Tiger. Where can we find your book and any other information about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is out on July 29th. of this summer. It's so crazy, so soon. And you can find it online anywhere you order books. So that's Barnes and Noble, Amazon. The Penguin has a really great page where you can click around and find all the different links. And then it'll be out in stores on July 29th. And we're doing an event at the Strand, if anyone's in New York City, with Chloe Gong, which we're very excited for. And you can find out more about it on my Instagram page or my TikTok page, or my website. And the address for all of those is my Instagram is just my name, no spaces, Julia Riew. That's also my TikTok, and my website is also juliariew.com. So
Fun. Yes, I saw on Goodreads that there's a giveaway. So you're giving away
yes, there's a
20
giveaway right now.
copies. So
Yes,
that's
we're
a
giving
lot of
away
fun.
20 finished copies. The other copies have been like the not finished. So these ones are actually finished. And one fun thing I'll add is that in the finished copies, you will get, first of all, you'll see the email where my grandpa originally sent me the love story and asked me in the email to make up a fictional version of the story, which I should have mentioned in the backstory. And the other fun thing is that at the beginning of each part, there are quotations from our grandparents' actual love story, from our grandparents. So just some fun things.
Those are great touches, and it's beautiful art on the cover. Did you do the cover? Or did you?
No, oh my gosh, an amazing Korean artist named Yejin Park did the cover. She also did A Crane Amongst Wolves, which I think that's one of the most beautiful covers. So yeah, there it is.
That's great that you can incorporate some Korean art too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, wonderful, Julia Riew with The Last Tiger. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to your release.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.